Welcome to our first video lecture for AP US History. We haven't done this yet. This one's going to be Causes of the Civil War. Use the pause button. It's there for you. It's the internet. So I don't think I'm going to blow anybody's mind with the connection between the Civil War and slavery, but it's a little more complicated than you might think. Certainly slavery is not good at all. Check out chapter 16 in your text. One of the main things that slavery really did exacerbate are the regional interests and the differences between the North and the South. As we've seen since the colonial period, the northern states and the southern states are very different as far as how they make their money, values, culture, who lives there, what they do, and because of the decreasing amount of shared interests, that's going to cause a lot of tension and reduce the amount of compromise. So when I was a wee tadpole growing up in the Midwest, I had teachers that swore up and down that the entire war was about states' rights. Then I got to college and they told us that we were insane if we thought it was about anything other than slavery. In reality, it's probably a balance between the two. Think back to the nullification people, the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions. States are sovereign, don't tell us what to do. That includes the debate over slavery. That argument still carries up to the Civil War. An example of trying to balance states is the Missouri Compromise. Think about it. The Senate has 2 representatives from every state. You want a balance between the free states and the slave states. If not, the other team wins. Missouri's going to come in as a slave state. They need to balance it out somehow. Massachusetts gives up Maine, the home of Murder, She Wrote. In exchange, they have a balance. They draw that line along the southern border of Missouri, free and slave. The Compromise of 1850 totally changes the game. This is when we've got all that territory from the Mexican-American War. California wants to be a state. There's a ton of people there. Gold rush, boomtowns, stuff like that. What are we going to do? There's a whole lot more country in play that they didn't know was going to be part of the U.S. when they made the Missouri Compromise. They balance it out, but there's a lot of really harsh pro-slave things to balance out the free stuff. Kansas-Nebraska Act, total game changer. This territory was supposed to have been decided by the Compromise of 1850. This is 4 years later. 4 years and they're already going back on the last compromise. This is absolutely unprecedented. They decide it's going to be chosen via popular sovereignty. The people living in Kansas and Nebraska get to decide by majority whether this is going to be free or slave territory. The results are not pretty. Bleeding Kansas is the result. This is what they're calling it at the time. If you want to see more about this, check out Santa Fe Trail starring Ronald Reagan. A great hour-and-a-half of your life you'll never get back that touches on this, sort of. Anyway, the personification of this conflict happened with the Bleeding Sumner incident. Preston Brooks attacks Charles Sumner on the floor of the Senate. It's ridiculous, and it just shows that there's no civility left at this point. Another really iconic event is the Dred Scott case in 1857. Dred Scott was born a slave. He's taken all around the country by his master at the time, who's a doctor who works for the military. He goes into free territory in the north and then goes back to the south later. He sues for freedom. Lower courts flip-flop on whether he's going to be free or a slave. In the end, the Justice Taney's court, the Supreme Court at that time, decides that African Americans can't even be heard in court and the federal government can't rule on slavery. Uh-oh. Another thing that really tips it over the edge is John Brown and the incident at Harper's Ferry. You guys probably know the old tune, John Brown's body lies a-mouldering in the grave. This incident catalyzed the nation. By the time 1860 and the election rolls around, the scene is set and there is no reconciling between all those green free states and all those red slave territories. What's going to happen? Tall gentleman walks on the stage, Abraham Lincoln. We know him, the first Republican president. He's from Illinois. He's born in Kentucky. He's seen a lot of the country. Has strong opinions about slavery, but is also a politician. In 1860, check out this map. Who voted for him? Free states voted for him. No slave state voted for him. This is not going to get a lot of acceptance from other people, right? Douglas dominated the South. Lincoln dominated the North. This isn't the kind of election where you see crossover between the North and the South. No one is undecided. Nobody is sitting on the fence, and this is really going to set the stage for what's going to happen next. The South secedes. After Lincoln gets elected, 11 states withdrew from the Union. They become the Confederate States. Eventually, Jefferson Davis will become their president. This is ridiculous. By the time he's inaugurated, 7 states have seceded. Check it out. The light blue ones, the free states are in the North. The dark blue independent territories are controlled by the North, the United States, and the Confederate States are in gray. Hey guys, review questions. Read them, pause it, think about your answers, then start again, and I'll talk through my answers and you can see what you came up with. Pause! Welcome to the answers. Alright, first one, the main events that caused the Civil War. You absolutely need to be able to talk about those compromises about land and the free states and the slave states. Missouri Compromise, Compromise of 1850, Kansas-Nebraska Act. Think about the tension between the North and the South. Think about the interplay between westward expansion and tension over slavery. Think about the fact that the first compromise lasts 30 years. The second one doesn't even last 4. Things are getting really, really bad. It leads to Bleeding Kansas, Bleeding Sumner, symbolic representations of how terrible the situation is in the United States. It gets worse after that. You want to know Dred Scott too. That's important because it sort of shows that the Supreme Court is totally pro-slave power and the North freaks out. It's symbolic of how unfair and biased they are. John Brown, likewise. For the North, he's a hero. He's a martyr to their cause. To the South, he's crazy, and he shows how far those abolitionists will go to violate people's rights. They're straight up killing people. This is going way beyond anything that's happened before. Would the war still have happened if some of these events did not occur? Tough to say. I leave that one up to you. This might be a good discussion. The actions of individuals bringing about the war. You want to think about John Brown in particular. He's a huge one. People in 1861 would have told you John Brown as well. Lincoln is important. You also could think about any of the compromisers in the Senate and the things they did that didn't really last. Southern states seceding. Absolutely the catalyst is Lincoln, but before that, all the rest.